Hello, it's Katie. Today we're going to be making the bangle that I talked about on a previous video. This is the bangle that we're going to be making. Well, it's more of a cuff than a bangle. It's a really good strong feel to it because of the wire that I've chosen to make this bangle with. We're going to be using seed beads in a size 8 with this, and we're going to be using this up and down wire weaving technique to encapsulate each of these little sections of beads. So what we're going to be using today, I'm going to be using Miyuki size 8 seed beads. The colours are matte silver lined smoky amethyst and dark silver lined dark mint seed beads. Are absolutely beautiful, and they work really well together because you've got the shine from the mint, and then you've got that shine but also that matte texture in the amethyst too. So the other things that we're going to be using is a 1.25mm wire. I've chosen to use bare copper today. I use a lot of bare copper in my work. If you want to check out my Etsy shop where I sell a lot of my work, that's in the link at the top of my channel homepage. So we're going to be using 1.25 bare copper wire, and we're going to be using 0.9mm bare copper wire. So if you haven't got these gauges, you could maybe use a 1mm and a 0.8, or if you've got 1.25 you could use a 1.25 and a 0.8 or a 1mm. But this is what works best for me and gives a really nice strong piece of jewellery. We're also going to be using a ring clamp. If you haven't got a ring clamp, you could also use tape to hold your wires together, because we're going to be working with a lot of wires all at one go. And the tools we're going to be using are, we're going to be using some baling pliers, so 6-step baling pliers. We're going to be using the smaller mandrels on these, so if you've got the ones that have just got the smaller ones. We're also going to be using some chain nose pliers just to make sure our weave is really neat and nip in any ends that we need to do. And we're going to be using some flush cutters, so some flush cutters to give a really nice finish on all our cuts. So flush cutter is a pair of snips that has a flat back, so that gives you that really nice flat end to your wire when it's being cut. Okay, so I'm just going to take a minute just to move all these things out of the way, and I'll show you how we get started. I'll be back in a second. So what I've done is I've cut my wires. Now my wires need to be all around about 9 inches each, no longer than that. And I need to cut 2 lengths of 1.25. So this is this one at the bottom and this one at the top. And then 6 lengths of 0.9mm wire. Now what I've done is I've just started to set this up just to save a little bit of time, but I'll go through what I just did. I laid a piece of tape down on my mat, and then I started laying my wires on with a seed bead on each. And what you need to do is, to get this spacing right, is make sure the seed beads are all in a line and not sat different to each other. They need to be all sat in a perfect line. And then you can hold on to this and then pop your empty wires, your 1.25, you don't put any seed beads on those. So it's just seed beads on your 0.9mm wire. And then you need to fold this over and fold this way. Okay, now your seed beads will try and come off, but as long as your wires are spaced out nice, just give that a good press down on there. And then we need to take our ring clamp, and hopefully this will stay together nicely, and then clamp down on there. So we're not clamping over the seed beads are still on there, and that's going to be the easiest way to get your wires in and all at the right spacing. So, and then pop this in. Now if you haven't got a ring clamp, what you need to do is just put plenty of tape on there and give yourself something to hold on to. So I'm just going to give that a really good push, like so. It was press it down on the table. So now we're ready to start our weaving. Now I'm going to leave those seed beads on there, so make sure you keep your wires at a slight angle. So I'm not sure how this is going to work on camera, but we'll give it a go. And we're going to start our weave, and we're going to start adding other beads as well. So if I just show you an example so you can see where I'm actually going with this, just so that we get a really nice diagonal, as we start. So this is where I started originally. So these seed beads here, if I bring this up and let this focus a second, there we go. So there's my original seed beads, and I've just built this up just so that I've got something to gauge again, so it keeps my wires nicely spaced out and ready for adding those wraps as we go up. Okay, so we're just going to start off working out how this goes, and then we'll move on to this piece because it'll be easier actually to show you on this piece. Okay, so we're going to start working down here again now. So you're going to take a piece of your 0.4mm wire. Sorry, I didn't add that right at the beginning, but you are going to need some weaving wire. So that's 0.4mm wire to wrap with. If you want to use a different gauge to wrap with, I wouldn't go higher than a 0.4. You could go finer, definitely. So we're just going to angle this up slightly because we don't want them seed beads to fall off. And using a ring clamp gives you something to hold on to. So we're just going to start on this first wire, this 1.25 wire. So I usually put my wire through in between these two wires here, and then just hold it down onto the ring clamp. And then I'm just going to put in our anchor wraps. So with every wire work piece, we always start with some anchor wraps. So I've got a couple of anchor wraps there just to start with. And then I'm going to wrap over two. So I'm going to wrap over two wires. Now I don't want to be actually pulling these together because we've put these beads in for a reason. We've put them there to space it out. So we just want to wrap over the two wraps and not pull them together. We want them to stay spaced out like so. And then we're going to come up in between those two we just wrapped. So if you watch my previous video, it's exactly the same. We wrap two and then come up in between the two we just wrapped. Now my next wrap is going to be a slight step over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a seed bead. These are not going to be part of the design. These are just literally spacing everything out for you. So I'm just going to add a seed bead down there. Not on that one, on the next one. That's what happens when you look at the camera and not what you're doing. So I've got that seed bead in place just there, ready to wrap on the next one. So wrapping over the next two, and that seed bead there will help you keep everything in place. Bringing this down, pushing these together, and it'll help that keep that space ready for your next lot of seed beads through. So wrapping again twice over and pushing down and in between those two you just wrapped. So in between that. And pushing down, keeping everything nice and neat and tidy. So this time we're going to add some seed beads to this one. So I'm going to add a couple to that one just because we're coming a little bit further away. So we're just creating that angle and keeping our spaces. If I just move, I'm just adding the beads to the end here. Like so. So pushing that down and straightening up any wires that might have moved a little bit, and then over to wrap on these two here. So pulling that through. Another tip when you're actually wire wrapping is try not to handle your wire so much. I know that's pretty hard when you've got to use your hands on it, but try not to run your fingers, the warmth of your fingers down the wire, which is often a reason why I push it through and then just pull it up through like so, just so that I'm not actually running my hands down it, because the more you work your wire, the more it work hardens, and when it work hardens, especially a copper or silver or something like that, it becomes harder. Let me just let that focus in again there. So it becomes the wire becomes harder and can become brittle and then could possibly snap. So moving up to this next wire, we're going to add 3 beads onto there. 1, 2, and another one, 3. And over to wrap the next 2. So over there, up in between, and around, pushing everything together nice and neat, tidy. That'll give you a really nice finish. Don't try and rush it, just keep it nice and controlled. So you can see now I'm keeping my spaces in my wire, but we're working up at that really nice angle. When we come to finish this, these green beads that I'm putting on at this very start, we won't be using those. Those are just going to come off the wires. So I'm just going to add 4 beads to this wire here. So I'm just going to drop that down a second while I just add those. 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, you could just go for it and try and do this without all this spacing and that, but I just think make your life easier. Work out your spacing and work out a way to do it that's easier for you, so you're not ending up with beads that don't fit in place. You see that this wire here has decided to come down, so I'm just going to encourage that to come back straighter. No bends or kinks in your wires, just encouraging it to behave like so. Okay, so now this one needs to come down a little bit like so, and then I need to come up in between here. Don't worry if your wire comes away just for that first bit, because we can just slide it back up. Okay, now we need to add some more beads onto this, the last of the 0.9 wire. So this time we'll be adding 4, I believe, or 5, sorry. It's 4 and 5, like so, and then wrapping over those 2 wires. Keeping this nice and controlled. Like I say, don't try and rush it. The spacing is the most important thing in this design. Otherwise, if you get one that doesn't sit right, it's going to spoil the entire look of your bracelet, your wrist adornment. Okay, so this one's going to come in like so. So when we come to the very top one, we're not adding beads at the very top because that's our 1.25 wire. So I'm using the 1.25 wire at the top and the bottom because it adds an extra detail. It makes the bracelet look more sturdy, and also it's going to give it extra strength. So we've created our first part of our weave. So I'm just going to bring that up to the camera and get it to focus in there. So we've created that first part of our weave. So, and I know we've got beads here, but we haven't actually started the design yet as to adding beads, but we've spaced it out beautifully and we're ready to start adding our actual beads to our design now. Now, I'm just going to say while I've got this up here, because I'm going to move it down when I do the wraps, that we're going to start adding an extra 5 wraps, 5 double wraps, sorry, 5 single wraps on these little sections, and what that's going to do is create a nice little space to add that first bead in there. So just on one wire, so I've got 2 wraps on my wire at the top, this double 2, I'll just bring that back up so you can understand, and then I'm going to wrap 5 times on this wire, this single wire. So bringing that up and wrapping, just let that focus a second. Focus, please. There we go. So wrapping 5 times singularly on that very top wire. So that's 2. That's 3, and nice and controlled, not rushing anything. That's 4, and then 5. Okay, so my wire's at the back now. My wire's at the back now and it's ready to start doing those 2 wraps, but before we add those 2 wraps, we need to add 1 bead to this first, the top 0.9mm wire. So I'm going to start with using the silver lined smoky amethyst. Okay, and now you just need to encourage this first bead to sit underneath those little wraps there. So just pushing it, there we go. So now that bead, if I bring this up, is sat under there. So it's sat in that first section. My wire's coming from the back, so I can push up through this gap and then start wrapping these 2 wires together. So pushing this nice and neat and tidy. I am sorry about the focus of the camera. I will get a better camera eventually. And then wrapping twice and then coming up in between the 2 we just wrapped. So we're doing the exact same thing. And now my wire's coming forwards towards me and I'm ready to wrap the next 2. But before we wrap the next 2 wires together, we need to add some beads to this second 0.9 wire on the way down. So let's find that wire. They will kind of all make friends at the end here. It's just encouraging them to not be quite so friendly with each other. But the key is also don't bend these wires. These wires need to stay nice and smooth as possible. And you'll find, because we did all that work at the very beginning, your beads will fit on really beautifully. So they're going to fit nicely, so you can fit two, like a half bead between each gap. So just putting that little bit of extra work, that few more minutes work, doing the tape work and spacing all those out at the very beginning is going to make, especially for this first bit, make your life so much easier to get everything spaced out and very neat and tidy looking right from the start. So pushing those down, and then it's just a matter of coming through, up in between and pushing down, and then we're ready to add our next 3 onto this wire, and so on and so forth. So I'll just work those just for a few seconds, work these beads onto here. So 1, 2, 3, like so, pushing that down, making sure your wires are in the right spot so you can start wrapping over the next set of 2 wires. Pushing these down. Like I say, take your time to make sure each wrap is right the first time, rather than having to go back and unravel wire, because that's no fun. That always is, unraveling all your wires and having to go back because something's not sat right. And then you have also the risk of damaging your wire as well. So, and you don't really want to be having to add wire if you can help it, which is why the length of 0.4 I'd recommend for this is probably take about 1.5 meters to 2 meters, depending on how long you're wanting your bracelet. If you do need to add wire, if you do run out of wire, the best chance you've got to add is actually on these single wraps here. So maybe finish off with 2 single wraps, then add your new wire with 3 single wraps, and then start again, and that would be the best point in which to add wire halfway through this design. So keep on wrapping our 2 together, and because we've got that fantastic spacing and the seed beads are now aiding us on each rung, it's so much easier to get your beads in each time. And you don't have to do the same pattern as me. I do think I'm going to have a go at making one, you know, where you just get seed beads and make a seed bead soup. I think that would be really nice with this type of bangle. Just make a really kind of multicolour design. I think that would be gorgeous. Just adding a few more. Are we on 4 or 5? We're on 5, so pushing those along. So add 1 more to this wire. Now when you do this, it will be a lot quicker than what I'm doing now. And I'm saying to keep it nice and steady and slow, but I would normally be kind of holding it right up in front of me so I could see what I was doing a bit more, but I'm holding it down and low for the camera, so it looks like it's going to be so time consuming, but it does actually build up really quickly. So again, wires come through in between the 2 we just wrapped, and we just need to add 6 beads to this last wire, and we're nearly there. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 more, 5 and 6, and pushing these down, and there we go. So we've popped those all the way in there and down to the bottom. So I'm going to wrap 2 over these 2 wires, like so. And then down to the bottom wire. Remember, we're not adding any beads onto that 1.25 wire, but we do make sure we finish on 2 wraps between those 2 wires, and then we have 5 single wraps just on that bottom wire. So 5 single wraps. And when I just a note, when I do pull and I've got some tension on here, I'm actually pulling sort of back here on my hand and then just pushing with my finger. If I pull just like this, it's pulling away and you could end up distorting your wires. So just make sure you use the tension inside your hand. So by holding the wire and pulling here, so I'm pulling with my fingers here and just pushing and guiding my wire into place at the top. Okay, so we're going to finish on those 5 wraps, and then you're in the point where, if you can imagine, we're working the opposite way round. We're ready to start adding this way. So we're ready to start adding up. So we'd add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 beads, and then work our way back down. And you can change the colours, it's entirely up to you, and just work along until you've got a piece like so. So that's how it's going to start building up that's where the place that we'd got to initially. So, and then you're going to get to this stage. Okay, so I've ended so that my diagonals are opposite to each other. So I've got one coming up this way and one coming down that way. So it's entirely up to you how you want to end it. But I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 triangles, 14 triangle pieces. Okay, so I'm just going to move these seed beads out of the way and I'm going to show you how to finish it off. So once we've completed our actual weaving for our bracelet, what we need to do is take a look at the ends. So at the ends here, we can finish off our wire, just trimming off at the very ends, and we need to cut them in a diagonal so that they're level with here. So I've done one end, so all I've done is trimmed up, and you can see that diagonal there, trimming with the flush side of the pliers closest to your work, is mimicking the diagonal that we have on here. Okay, so that's all trimmed. We're just going to cut one end to start with, and then we're going to work on this end, shape it, and then finish it at this end over here. So, and from there, what we're going to do is we need to curl all these around. So I find it easiest if I just, maybe using my chain nose pliers, just grab those middle 2 and just pull them in very slightly. So I've just pulled them, just so the 2 middle ones are coming in slightly. Then I'm going to work on that centre one. So I'm going to use the smallest mandrel on my pliers to start turning those back. So turning those in towards the inside of the bangle. And then you might need to work individually on them as well. Don't worry if they slide a bit, if they slide from the other side, that's why we haven't cut the other side yet. So we're just creating loops that come back towards the piece that we've made and pushing those down. So we've got 2 loops on the inside there, and then we need to do the exact same with these 2, and then we need to do the ends. So just kicking these forwards a bit, so just by pulling them very gently, not bending them, just pulling them gently forwards, we can just start working on these to create them loops coming forwards. So just working whichever way feels more comfortable for you, just working them loops towards the inside, one at a time. Don't be tempted to try and do all of them at the same time. Trust me, it won't work. I've tried it. So just pulling those in and getting them as leveled up as you can, like so. So we've got 4 loops coming on the inside now, and then I'm just going to pull these ones forward. I do this one, start this one, and then I'll turn it round. So just take your time figuring out which angle works for you best. I'm going to start this one as well. I'm not going to finish that, I'm going to turn it around and work this way. So if it starts to feel uncomfortable on your wrist or anything, just turn the work until it's in a more comfortable position for you, and popping that one in there. So that one, I feel like that's come over a bit too far, so I pulled it a little bit, so there we go, that's a bit better. So just adjusting, as soon as you see something that's slightly, you're not happy with it, do it then, adjust it straight away, and then you know that you're in the right spot. So all those are now coming down in that angle to match each other. And we're going to do the same with these ones. So exactly the same, using the smallest mandrel. This is going to be harder to turn because it's a thicker wire, so just keeping it nice and smooth and turning this one in. And then we're going to come over to this side and right on the tip of our pliers start turning this one in as well. Okay, so now we've got all those loops there and in place. So now we have all our loops created at the end here. What we're going to do is we're going to pass a piece of 0.25 through these two to bind them together and give our bracelet some more strength. So I've got a piece, it's probably about 2 inches long. So this is a piece of 1.25 wire. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the very end of my round nose pliers. I'm using my round nose pliers because it's a slightly smaller loop. And I'm going to bring this right around to create a little loop at the end, like so. And then just making sure this is nice and straight. So just holding that and just making sure this is nice and straight and smooth. We're going to pop this all the way through here, like so. And then we're going to create a loop coming back the other way. Now we don't want it to sit too tight, so we don't want it to gather together. So I'm going to cut it about almost 1.5 centimetres. So go a little bit bigger if you want to do, and then you can go smaller if you need to. I'm just going to hold it just because it's easier to hold the loop upwards until I get almost there. So I'm going to pop my pliers in again and start turning that loop. Turning until I come all the way down. Now I've got some movement in there, that's what we want, so I've got that little bit of movement in there, and now all I need to do is just start pulling these in just a little bit. Now you can have the loops so they're slightly sticking out a little bit, there's a bit more extra detail, or you can just encourage them to come in and sit more inside your cuff, like so. So just encouraging and holding everything in place so they sit more like so. So that's going to hold those together on the inside of your bracelet. Don't worry if they flick out a little bit, they'll sort of with time and with work hardening they'll all sit nicely in place. Okay, so that's how we finish the ends. So I'm just going to show you how we shape it, and then that's the point where we would finish the opposite end as well. So just how to shape it. You could use a shampoo bottle if you haven't got a professional mandrel. I'm going to use a mandrel. So this is a bracelet mandrel. This is a stainless steel one, so it's very, very heavy, very heavy. So and this is an oval shape, so I'll just show you the end there. So it's more of an oval shape than a round. So it's entirely up to you what you choose to use. So, and then all you need to do is just gently start shaping this around until you get the shape that you require. And then all you would do, so you see how this is finished at the end here, so they'll be kind of like opposite angles to each other, so I thought that was quite a nice way to finish it. And then all you're going to need to do is do the exact same on the other side, so taking this out, just move that to one side because it's really heavy. So, and then all you need to do is finish off the ends just like you did at this side. If you find you want to add a little bit of wire there to cage these little these bars in, that's totally fine. I didn't need to on my finished piece. So this is my finished piece. So you can see, I'll show you the inside there, you can see those little bars on the inside there, and it's finished really nicely. And by using that 1.25, we've got that beautiful flash of metal, that nice thicker flash of metal in between each of these little triangles as well. So it adds another design detail using that slightly thicker gauge on the outside, on that outside edge, and it's really nice and comfortable to wear. And what you do is once you've popped it on, just mould it, and with the warmth of your fingers and your wrist, you'll be able to just shape it to wear it, and it's really comfortable, really nice and comfortable there. Okay, so thank you so much for watching. I've got lots and lots of ideas coming up for new videos very soon. I have shown you previously the pendants, so they are coming up soon. So this is one of the pendants that we're going to be making soon. So that's in preparation now. There's another bracelet that's coming using this colour seed beads, which are absolutely beautiful. So please subscribe so we don't miss anything, and I will be with you again very soon. Check out my other videos as well for some more wire weaving, wire work techniques, and yeah, I will see you soon. Take care.